Freeland. And I'm sure you have seen, I hope you've read The Connector, beautiful picture. And her background is she is a PATH, which stands for International Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship. Certified instructor, has her BS degree in recreational therapy from West Virginia University. She owns and operates HHS Holistic Horsemanship Services. It's a nonprofit business in Northern Virginia that connects horses and humans through equine assisted learning. She's also the equine module provider for Boulder Crest, which many of us are familiar with. She hosts grief support groups in the barn with the horses in collaboration. And she's been in this world for 40 years, worked as a recreational therapist, is specializing in traumatic brain injury and stroke rehabilitation, and just unbelievable. I think this is fascinating. Horses do not care about your words, they care about the energy you bring into their space. And you can imagine how this would be so wonderful for stroke victims, for many situations.
Yeah.
It's not Bonnie.
No, that's the girl that's giving it.
And
Okay.
remind everyone, mute
May
your,
I remind you to please mute yourself before Adrienne starts speaking, and then you can unmute at the end of her talk for questions. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions, Adrienne. So
Great.
without further ado, Adrienne Freeland. Thank you. And her husband, who did her slides, I believe.
Yes, he did.
Go ahead, Adrienne.
All right. And Anne, I'm going to be able to tell you next slide. Does that work? Okay. Wonderful.
Whoops.
Okay. And if we can go to the next slide.
Make sure you mute, guys. I still hear sound.
Okay. No.
So thank you so much for having me. We're going to dive right in and do some fire hose teaching, as I call it. The category of work I do is known as Equine Assisted Learning, or EAL. My degree in recreational therapy and PATH certification is what allows me to do this work. Okay, and then next. So we focus on leadership, partnership, and connection. The farm that I lease is called Sunny Lane Farm in Round Hill, Virginia. And the property there allows me to do
Yeah,
this.
Round Hill. She must have.
All right.
It must have.
And
Carmel.
okay. There are several forms of horse and human offerings, and it can be confusing to the general public. So we have what's called hippotherapy, which is mounted work, and that is done by a licensed therapist, such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, and even speech therapy. There's also therapeutic riding, which is done by an individual who's certified through PATH, the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship. But what I do is called Equine Assisted Learning. Okay, so it's non-mounted work. So you are not on the horse, you're with the horse. And here we have, this is a picture of the barn where I do my work. The barn brings a change in venue and a change in atmosphere. It is not a non-sterile environment. It's far from a non-sterile environment. The smell of hay and horsehair and even manure bring a welcome change to the senses. It's easier to relax and be transparent in the softness of the stable. And next. Wonderful. Yep. So many of my participants state that they start to breathe differently and relax just driving on the country roads. One of the groups that comes to me is the men and women from Walter Reed. and it's about an hour and a half drive. And many of them are not familiar with the Northern Virginia area. So to come out to the barn before they even a different type of surroundings than they're accustomed to. Being in nature and at the farm has restorative implications just in itself. And next. So this was obviously a pre-COVID picture, but as Brenda had mentioned, I do the connection module at Boulder Crest Foundation. And this is a veteran that came up to me after the equine program. And he just said that it had deeply affected him and he wanted to thank me. And as I'm hugging him, there was a line behind him of all the participants who thought that was the next thing, was to go and hug the instructor. So I get as much from doing it as the participants do that are receiving it. And next. So one of the things that we talk about with the military individuals that we see is the shift to civilian life. And that's where we're seeing some obstacles and struggles and challenges. So here I am teaching this woman who is very high ranking to release and exhale. So when we exhale, it allows the horse to come into our space, because the horse is a prey animal, and a prey animal is always on guard. So when we hold our breath in tension, that's the same thing that a predator would do before it came in to eat its prey. So we are predators simply because we're human. So what we teach with the veterans is to release, to hang heavy, and to exhale. And the horse will immediately feel safer in their presence. Next. This is a photo demonstrating grooming at liberty. So liberty is a term we use to express that the horse is not tethered, it is not haltered, its movement is not restricted. It is allowed to be loose and free. It's allowed to react to what is happening to it. It is allowed to shift or move. So we'll have the veterans come into this area and I'll teach them the basics of grooming, and the horses will stand like this because it acts as a massage and it acts as an overall wellness check. Now, it's not true liberty. True liberty would be in an open field where you couldn't even see the fences. So when we do liberty work with the veterans, we call it adapted liberty. So you're with them, but they have the choice to be present or to walk away. So in this work that I do of equine assisted learning, we're constantly monitoring that the horse is okay too. Okay. And next. Okay. So, sorry. So this is called grounding. And this is basically, we'll have the individuals come out. You see that they're sitting on burlap sacks, but it's still truly grounding, and they'll connect with their breath. So when we do that, the animals realize that we're letting go of some of our predatory energy, and they feel safe to come into our space. Okay. And next. So I have come into the habit of laminating all of my thank yous. And what that does for me is it helps me to reflect, particularly when I'm having a hard day, that this work is meaningful, it is purposeful, and is helping. So this young woman wrote, "Just a small thank you for being an amazing woman, creating a truly wonderful program for people like me, to help us grow We need more people like you in this world. Thank you so much for these wonderful, extremely life-changing opportunities, skills and opportunities. So when the labor of the farm gets to me, I'll sit at my desk and read these thank you notes. And next. So another population that I serve are children that are struggling with various challenges. The key component here is often chores. Chores that help another being survive and be comfortable. Okay, let me get caught up with my program here. So physical labor, time outdoors, teamwork, friendship, poop jokes, helping keep the space the pony lives in clean. Win, win, win. So everybody likes to see the riding photos and the jumping photos and those beautiful photography of the horse and movement. But behind the scenes is where the work happens. And this is when you really discover that you love this sport or this animal so much that you're willing to do the labor of it. Next. So this is a photograph. I teach everyone that comes to the farm the horse handshake. And the horse handshake is simply a soft wrist with no assertion or aggression. So it's not like this, but soft. So even to hold our hand like this requires energy, and the horse feels energy. So you see all the girls have gone up to this big giant draft with a horse handshake. And they've also been taught to release their breath when they go up to him. So they do a big exaggerated exhale and they give a soft wrist. And what that does is it allows the big giant horse, Moses, to feel safe to come into their space. And by his eyes and his ears in this photo, we can see that he is okay with this interaction and he actually enjoys it. So next. So here we have a picture, obviously not a horse, but a chicken. And this is just to demonstrate that just because something is nonverbal doesn't mean that it's non-thinking. We simply have to take it upon ourselves as humans to learn its language. So a horse communicates with its eyes, its ears, its nostrils, and how it holds its body. So we've gotten away from thinking that humans that are nonverbal because of a disability or a genetic situation are non-thinking. We know very differently now that that's not the case. So this helps us to learn others and other ways of communicating. Okay. And next. So there's much talk now of being in the moment, of putting your cell phones down, putting your iPad down, and being in the moment. Well, and it's great advice. We all need to do it. But animals are in the moment all the time because it's how they stay alive. If they were to be distracted, they could get eaten. When we're distracted, we often make mistakes too. We make driving mistakes when we're texting. We make, just when we're not in the moment. So when I put individuals with the animals, they're truly not worrying about yesterday, and hopefully they're not thinking about tomorrow, but they're being in the moment, and the animals set you up for success in understanding that. And next. So the other population that I serve is I do work with Blue Ridge Hospice. This gentleman was in his last time, to be on Earth. And his wife was seeing a therapist who recommended that maybe they come out to the farm and spend some time with me and the horses. And this gentleman wouldn't go. He got to the point he didn't want to do anything, but he was still able to do some things, but he just didn't want to. So his wife said, I have this idea. I'd like to take you to this barn and I'd like you to just see what it's like. Well, he came out 3 or 4 times because he really, really embraced it. He loved that there was no judgments. Horses make no judgments. They make no assumptions. And he gravitated to Penny. We were able to pull his van all the way into the ring, transfer him to his wheelchair, and let him spend some time with the horses. And next. And the beautiful thing about equine assisted learning is that the whole family and the caregiver gets to participate. Penny doesn't necessarily know who she's there to visit with. So here she's with the gentleman's wife, and she's simply touching, connecting, smelling. And what it gave this couple was something to talk about and something to process and digest. Their trip to the farm. When might they go again? What was Penny saying with her ears and her eyes? So it's a diversion from the realities of his illness, which was such a focus for them. She was the caregiver, and this was just outdoors, random, and something enjoyable that they could do together. So next. Hospice is also, the butterfly is representative of hospice. And the other work I do with them is a monthly grief support group. And it's at the farm and it's with the horses. And it's for anyone who's grieving or experiencing grief. And the way it came about briefly was I had a loss. And I knew clinically and as a clinician that I needed to do my work through grief. And I went to a grief support group, and it was in the basement of the courthouse in a storage room. And I came home from that group and my family was like, how was it? Was it great? Did you feel better? I said, no, I was in the basement of the courthouse. So I got this idea, like the barn makes me feel better. What if we did it outside and with the horses? And I called Blue Ridge Hospice, and they sent their whole team of grief support givers out to the farm, and we did a session. And 2 years ago, it started. And now we do it once a month, the first Wednesday of the month at 4:30 every month. And next. So this is actually when a new group comes in the barn, we do an icebreaker. So this is simply all of the horses' names on chalkboards. And next. So the family or the group or the whoever it is takes all the chalkboards and all the horses are in their stalls, and they have to figure out who's who. So we don't tell them the horses' names, what their jobs were, what gender they are, because once we tell people something's name or their gender or what their job is, as humans, we start to make assumptions and judgments immediately. It's just human. It's like we're predators because we're human. We make assumptions and judgments because we're human. So, and horses do not. They don't care what we drive. They don't care what we wear. All they care about is the energy that we bring into their space. So the name game is a nice creative art icebreaker for people who might be a little bit nervous. And next. So here we just have some pictures of the horses. This work requires different breeds, different sizes, different personalities. No one horse is favored because of its breed or size. And next. And I tease people that my executive director is Mother Nature. So obviously she has a role in everything that we do. So this is just a sample here of what the winter does to me. Some of the horses will need blankets. Some of the horses will need their hooves de-iced. Again, just an example of the labor of the work. And next. So the next couple of slides, I'm going to just read you a recent study that was done. So this is Marion, my stepmom, always tells me about the diversity of your group. So I thought this is for the scientists and kind of that mindset, like how does this work? So another reason why everyone should love horses. Recent studies conducted by the Institute of Heart Math provide a clue to explain the bidirectional healing that happens when we're near horses. According to researchers, the heart has a larger electromagnetic field and higher level of intelligence than the brain. A magnemeter can measure the heart's energy field radiating up to 8 to 10 feet around the human body. While this is certainly significant, it is perhaps more impressive that the electromagnetic field projected by the horse's heart is 5 times larger than the human one. Imagine a sphere-shaped field that completely surrounds you. The horse's electromagnetic field is also stronger than ours and can actually directly influence our own heart rhythm. Horses are also likely to have what science has identified as a coherent heart rhythm, heart rate pattern, which explains why we feel better when we're around them. Studies have found that a coherent heart pattern, or HRV, is a robust measure of well-being and consistent with emotional states of calm and joy. That is, we exhibit such patterns when we feel positive emotions. And next. So when you stand this close to the horse, your heart rates are becoming congruent. So your heart rate is matching when you're this close. And next. So a coherent heart pattern is indicative of a system that can recover and adjust to stressful situations very efficiently. Think PTSD. Okay. Oftentimes we only need to be in a horse's presence to feel a sense of wellness and peace. In fact, research shows that people experiencing many physiological benefits while interacting with horses, including, but not limited to, lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, increased levels of beta endorphins, neurotransmitters that serve as pain suppressors, decreased stress levels, reduced feelings of anger, frustration, tension, and anxiety just by being near them, improved social functioning, and increased feelings of empowerment, trust, and self-efficacy. So that a really amazing study that I encourage you to look at more deeply if that's what interests you. So this is just another picture of the farm. Another thing for the men and women that come out from Walter Reed and the grief support group is the farm is constantly changing with the weather, with the seasons. So there's different chores required for each season. And next. So we talk about a little bit about the curious. So horses are curious, they're playful, they're inquisitive, and we're not using them, but we're letting them come into our space, and they're letting us come into their space. So this is Penny with her head through the tack room window. And next. So, it's not all fun and games, and it's not all being out in nature, unfortunately. Providing the actual sessions is a small percent of the work required.
Adults.
Mhm.
Here is where things like inventory control, scheduling of vet and farrier appointments, documentation, bookkeeping, and the TAC is stored. Next. The job is laborious and requires a high level of fitness and mobility. If you run your own farm, this is something that you encounter. So I will unload
sure?
a truckload of hay like this every 8 to 10 weeks with the farmer that delivers it. Next. So that's, we put the hay up in the loft, 100 bales at a time. And next. And I can truly say, some people feel status with money, status, a pantry full of groceries. I feel power with a shed full of hay. And next. So this, you might think this is an odd picture, but this is my kitchen table. And this represents that this work is 24/7, 365. But it's also my passion, and the herd is like family. I currently am nonprofit pending, so I do not take a paycheck. So the way this all happens is above the barn is an Airbnb called The Nest. So I hate fundraising. So instead I host in wine country, in horse country, and that Airbnb feeds the herd and pays for the programs that are donated. Walter Reed is donated, and Blue Ridge Hospice is, all that work is donated. And next. So I started Holistic Horsemanship Services after seeing a need for this work in my community. We are fortunate to have many, many mounted programs, hippotherapy, therapeutic riding. There are a plethora of options here in Virginia. But I wanted to be a part of a non-mounted, non-riding, groundwork, chore-focused program. So I started Holistic Horsemanship Services, which is an equine assisted learning movement. This picture on the screen is in honor of my brother, David Eric McGrosky. He was a veteran and he lost his life to suicide. Everyone wants to be someone's sun, to light up someone's life, but why not be someone's moon to brighten in the darkest hour? So I hope that's what my work does, is to help people connect with their breath, lose the predatory energy, and find peace and comfort, just like the heart rate study proves horses can. And we always thought it was the mounted, it was the riding the horse that gave us freedom and gave us so much joy. But now we know it's just being in their presence. And the final slide. This concludes my presentation on equine assisted learning. I look forward to your questions and thoughts. And when the world opens back up, I would absolutely love to host your group for an outing to be with the horses up close and really feel what this work can do.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. Enjoyed it. Where is the B&B? What's the name of the B&B?
So it's called The Nest because it
Okay.
sits up in the trees above my barn.
I see. Okay. And where are you in Round Hill?
Round Hill. So I am about 5 miles from Middleburg. I'm actually in.
Well, I know where Round Hill is. My nephew lives there.
Okay. It's closer to Philemont, and we're very much in the woods and about 5 to 7 miles from Middleburg.
Okay. Questions, guys?
Well, I wanted to just make a statement when I was listening to you. I don't know if other people have had this experience, but I really realize that so many young girls love horses, love them, and really get involved and really go out there constantly and groom them and feed them and love them. And I just have noticed this over the years. I don't know where I first became aware of it. I'm a psychologist and I've worked with a lot of teenagers over the years, and I know that they just adore this experience, and it's actually such a healthy one, and it always has been perceived as such a healthy thing for young girls to do. And I know other parents who wish that their daughters would get involved, but you're talking about this and explaining it answers a lot of questions I've had about what was that made them so devoted to doing this. I mean, it's just was a phenomena to me how that worked. But I understand through what you're talking about. It isn't even the riding, it's the love, the connection, the
heart.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes,
You know, my dad used to say to people, because I've loved horses since I could move, since I could
Right.
walk. But he'd say, get your daughter a horse, it'll keep her away from boys.
Yes, that's exactly. I've heard
Right?
that too. Yes, I've heard that. Exactly. But not only heard it, but it's true. It is true.
It's true,
Oh my gosh. it's
because they're
true.
getting what they need.
Right.
Well, it's like they're looking right into your soul. I mean, honestly, when I've been around horses, which is not a lot, it's like, yeah, you feel that connection with them. Wow.
And I,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
What's the name of the study? What the electromagnetic heart study you mentioned? Where did that come out of? What journal?
There's a group called Heart Math. And what I can do is I can send you a link to that through Anne. But it's Heart Math, and they've done a lot of work in this. And it's really groundbreaking for our profession, because we know these things, but now it's being researched and studied, and we're getting the bones to probably not in my lifetime, but I hope that insurance and third-party payer sources will recognize the validity of this. The VA is just starting to. So more of these studies is what needs to happen.
Well, I know that if a Gala model requires a licensed therapist plus a licensed horse expert. Have
Yes.
you?
So that's Equine Assisted Mental Health. And that is with a licensed, either licensed marriage and family counselor, or a licensed social worker or mental health provider. And that's the thing we have to be so careful about using the word therapy, because we don't want to mix all of them up. The
Yeah.
general population, it's a lot of information to understand. We struggle with it even in our own profession. Therapeutic riding is confusing because it is not necessarily done by a therapist. Now, hippotherapy is PT/OT speech or psych. Okay. Now, my programs with hospice, there is a licensed social worker with me for those sessions. So that something
what about
comes
the
up
veterans?
So with the veterans, what happens there is the recreational therapist from Walter Reed brings them to me. It is part of their plan, their short-term, long-term goals. And then they take that back to all their therapists, and it's one modality that they use.
Are your horses all rescue horses, or do you own them all, or are you leasing some of them? And how are you handling the horse end of it?
So 3 of the horses are my own, and they have various backgrounds. And one's a jumper, very well ribboned jumper, grand champion. Another is a quarter horse, Western. Now 2 that I board, and that's another way I make income, is boarders. One is that Moses is from Gentle Giant Draft Rescue.
Yeah.
And he actually, if you could see closely, has a broken eye socket from the work that he used to have to do.
Oh,
Yes. So, and that's the thing when we talk about diversity, because the humans in our life are so diverse. So I don't like Penny is perfect all the time, but that I don't use her for every session because I want people to experience the difference in energy, the diversity in personality. You know, the gray thoroughbred that you saw is very anxious and very nervous, but there's times that I want to use her to demonstrate something.
So
which
if I
ones
had,
are yours?
So Penny, Dutch, the brown quarter horse, and the little halflinger, those three are mine.
Okay.
so I have a question. So let's say that I had PTSD
Yep.
from fighting in Vietnam or something.
Okay.
And I would come out to your kind of, what would you do with me?
So
I mean,
the
when I
first
would
thing
come
that we
out
could
and-
do, and I don't really like when Walter Reed comes, I know that they're in Walter Reed, but I don't know all their individual backgrounds. I don't need to know that because the horse, I'm a facilitator. I'm a co-facilitator with the equines. So we're going to the horse is going to respond if the person jumps or if the person comes in full throttle. So I'm going to help them connect to their breath through a 4-7-8 breathing technique. And I'm going to teach them that horse handshake and that exhale. And then the horse is going to be comfortable to come into them.
And then do they spend time with the horse on multiple occasions then? As they feel more comfortable
Yes.
allowing the horse, and do they groom the horse or brush them or walk them or feed them?
Yes. So each
All of
time
that.
they come, the more comfortable they get, the more independent they get.
I see.
So we're going to start off with that handshake and just being, and then we're
Right.
going to go to grooming, and then we're going to go to leading, and then we're going to
Leading?
go to some liberty work, leading, like leading the horse.
Yeah.
And remember, leadership to a horse is not bossy. It means safety.
Mm.
They
So,
want that's why there's always a lead horse in the herd.
Yeah.
And the whole herd dynamics are very much a family, a unit, and it's all about safety. So the veterans can lock into that and understand that immediately.
Right.
how many sessions do they do if they have, like Nancy said, PTSD?
So
I mean,
it'll depend on where they are in the program at Walter Reed. Boulder Crest is a whole nother, I could do a whole nother talk on that. But what I see mostly is a transition to civilian life or retirement. That's where the obstacles, the shift, and the struggles happen because nobody sets them up for success on how to be a civilian.
yeah.
Yeah. Or how to retire.
Right.
Same with us.
Yeah, we could work on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think your work is just wonderful. I
Thank
really do. We have a 8-year-old grandson who has Down syndrome. And we've been taking him for about the last 3 years riding in Great Falls. And
Lift me up.
Right.
yeah, and his affection for the horses and his ability to be comfortable with them. From what you're saying, I can see is they make each other comfortable because they have a high degree of trust with each other right from the get-go. So, and I can see that from in ways that I haven't been able to understand it. You're giving me the horses concept rather than my own prejudices. I can see that there's a relationship that's heart to heart that is just so recognizable once you start explaining it.
And I will tell
Very
you,
good.
John, that your grandson probably has less predatory energy
Yes,
than
Yes,
other beings.
he loves everybody.
Right.
he does. He loves everybody. You just need to show up and he, yay!
Oh,
And the horse senses
Sweet.
that.
Right.
Something you said resonated with me very early in the program. You talked about getting individuals to exhale when meeting the horse. Now, years ago, my daughter and I were involved with horses, and I read somewhere or I learned somewhere that if you were introducing yourself to a horse, you should exhale close to their face, just let your breath out, and then wait to see if the horse breathed back to you.
Exactly.
Now,
Oh.
I have to tell you, I had a lot of people laughing at me with that,
Sure you
with
did.
promoting that, saying you want to go blow in the horse's nose, right? But it worked. You could approach
Yep.
a horse you didn't know and set up an interaction that was positive. If you follow that guy, and it's right along with what you said, I may have taken it a different way, but it's the same thing. You're introducing yourself. And if you watch horses in the wild, what do? They go nose to nose and
Mhm.
exchange breath. So it really resonated with me when you mentioned that. A beautiful way to greet a horse.
And the thing is, what we're trying to do is give our participants takeaways. So
Right.
this work isn't just about being in the barn. I tell them I'm giving you tools for your back pocket.
Sure.
So myself, before I hate to go to the doctor, hate it, but I will now do my connect with my breath, do my exhale, and I'll remember that. And that's my hope, is participants can take things that the horse taught them and use them in real life instances.
Absolutely.
Because we hold our breath all day long.
Yeah, we do.
We hold our breath when we're nervous, when we're anxious, and our heart's like, hey, how about some oxygen? Right? So we
Right.
do that exhale, the horse walks up to us, and then hopefully the lesson is your coworkers will feel safer walking up to you. Your family will feel safer walking up to you. Use it. It's a gift.
Beautiful. Love your
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, William.
In a pure serendipity, Health and Science in the Post today has an article about hugging cows. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see it.
I haven't, but I love to hug cows.
Last page of it, and it talked about how owners of herds, small and large, had learned that in this COVID era, people really needed to relieve stress, and they, for $75 an hour, allow them to come and hug their cows, and the cows love it, and the cows just kind of lay down and hug with the clients. And so it's obviously quite different than your therapy plan. but I just
Moving
wondered
along.
what your reaction is, what your reaction is to that. And I
Yeah,
see
no.
what it is, laughter, which is
No, but it's true. I mean, it just, and part of it's when we talked about being in the moment. So if you're hugging a cow, you're not looking at your phone, you're not worrying about your grocery list, you're not wondering if you left the iron on, you're with a cow. You know, like what else
I've never
could there
wondered
be?
about any of those things.
Well, it's like having a dog that relieves you. You can love the dog and the dog loves you back, and that
Yes.
relieves stress too.
it surely does. Anyway, wonderful talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Very interesting.
You know, I had a story that we've always heard in my family. My dad was raised on a farm, which was a long time ago because I'm 76 and this is my dad. And when the story in our family was that my grandparents had a horse that was a wild horse and it kicked if you tried to get near it, very afraid. And my grandmother walked into the barn around the corner and there was my dad and he was about 3 years old. He had both of his hands wrapped around the back end of the horse, his rear legs. And he was just cuddling it and had his head against the horse's legs. And the horse was just standing there, looking back at my dad, not moving a muscle. And my grandmother backed out of the barn because she said she knew if the horse saw her, he would go nuts and start kicking.
Yeah.
It killed my dad. But she just backed out of the barn and my dad just stayed there and hugged the horse and patted him and he didn't make a move. And then my dad wandered away. And it's like, oh my God, we always heard that story. But you can see that the horse felt safe with my dad and he felt my dad hugging his legs or whatever, and he saw who it was. But I mean, they're very smart. And
Yes.
he could feel that.
And the energy, your dad meant him no harm.
Absolutely. He meant him no harm and the horse knew that. And so he wasn't gonna harm my father. God, that's just amazing. Anyway, very interesting. Does
Love
that
it.
make more
Love it.
sense?
The world would be a better place.
Yeah, wow. We should all do that. What? Oh, there's your article.
Yes.
Oh, I have to look at that. That's great.
Well, you know
Okay.
what? I think it
I
would
don't
be
know if you
great
can
if our
see it.
group could come out.
The
Oh, I
cow
would
comes out
love
better
it.
than the man.
I think it would too.
Oh my gosh, it would be such a nice experience, to really do that. When COVID lets up and we can
Yes.
all, I'd love it. It would be so.
And we can have a picnic.
Yes,
Maybe
Yes.
maybe we could go out in June.
that'd be great. And
Yeah.
we don't have to, the people that come to see you, what is the biggest reason they say they come? I mean, you can't just come out there and say, I'd
Well,
like to hang out with your horses.
no, well, actually, what it does is when I do a regular session with, say, regular people,
Yeah,
it's because they want to support the program for the veterans or those grieving.
Right.
So it's called learning the language of the horse. And that's just a regular experience I do for regular people that want to learn more about it.
just kind of an educational.
Yes, education.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
That would be
Learning the
fun. Maybe
language
we
of the
can
horse.